So in this video, I'm going to walk you through how I differentiate if something is going on at the AO joint, the AA joint, or C2-3 and below. So just as a recap, the biomechanics of the upper cervical spines, AO, AA joint, are contralateral coupling. So if we side bend to the left, we rotate to the right. And then from C2-3 down below is ipsilateral, so you side bend left, you're going to rotate left. And so typically 70% of the rotation comes from the upper cervical spine. And so if someone's lacking less than about 60 degrees of rotation, it's usually an upper cervical problem. Not always, especially people that are hypermobile, they're going to have full rotation, but it's not. And so you'll think, oh, this is a lower joint problem, but it still might be up here. And with Juliana, she's hypermobile, so we'll see if she has something going on in her upper cervical spine. So we're going to say we've looked at her motion. She has a loss of rotation to the right. So first I want to know, is it C2-3 or is it AA or OA? So I'm going to differentiate mid to lower cervical spine versus upper cervical spine. The way that I do that is that I get onto C2 and C3, and I'm going to side bend her to the left. So if I side bend her to the left, and then I rotate to the right, and the restriction is worse than if I side bend her to the right and rotate her to the right, then that means it's an upper cervical problem because I'm assessing the biomechanics of the upper cervical spine. So again, if I side bend left and rotate right, you're looking at AA and OA joints. And if that restriction or pain is present, then you know it's coming from an upper cervical spine. If I were to side bend her left, rotate her right, and it didn't bring on the same pain or it was diminished, then I would need to confirm by side bending her to the right and then rotating her to the right. And that would be more of a C2-3 or lower problem. So for Juliana, when I do side bend her left and I rotate her right, she's a little bit more restricted than if I side bend her right and rotate right. She's got much more freely flowing motion. So I think there's something going on at either OA joint or AA joint. So now to differentiate those two joints, you can play around with adding in craniovertebral flexion or extension or neutral to test the joint to see which one is most restricted. So if I were to flex her, the way I do it is come onto, my pinkies are on her occiput, my forearm is on her forehead. If you need a pillow here, you can have one. I'm not going to use one for this demonstration, but I would get on her occiput, cradle her head, get on her C2, and then come up into the space above it, and now I'm on C1. And so I'm going to CV flex her, so just craniovertebral flexion, and I'm blocking C1 while I'm rotating right, and that is restricted. I can also test her in neutral. That moves more freely. I can also test her in a little bit of extension, and that moves the freest. So for her, it's when I flex her up and I rotate her that we get a block. And so I think it is that the right AO joint cannot go posterior on C1 because those are the biomechanics of it. As she rotates right, this has to go up and back. C1 goes down and forward. So with her being worse in flexion, I'm testing that right OA joint. If she was worse in extension, then I would think that it would be a left OA problem that can't come forward because I've pre-positioned her in extension. We're worse. I need to encourage more extension. If she has the same restriction in all three planes of motion, if it's the same with CV flexion, extension, and neutral, then I think it's an AA joint problem. So that kind of walks you through which way, how you can go about differentiating. Is it a mid to lower cervical issue? And then which joint, upper cervical, are you going to get the most bang for your buck? And so for her treatment, I would do a glide to promote the right OA joint to go posterior on the right AA joint.